Hello, everybody. How is everybody doing? Let me get over to the screen over here so I can see. Where are we? Where are we at? There we are. And let me mute this. Let me get back over to y'all. Here we go. Okay, so let me make this bigger while we're waiting on them to start here. There we go. Hello, everybody. How's everyone doing? What's going on? Can y'all hear me? Drop a one if you can. Hey, Stormy. Hey, Mel. Hey, Coco. Hey, Jody. Hey, reporting live. Hey, AC. Hey, Vicky. Hey, Pamela. Hey, Tina. I hope everybody's doing well. I hope everyone had a good day yesterday. Hey, Spooky Fox. Thank you, Mel. Hey, Bren. Hey, Jenny. Hey, Deidre. Hey, Sen. Oh, thanks, Sen. I appreciate it. Thanks for joining. Hey, Shaylee. Hey, Amy. Melody. Kazoo. Woohoo. I hope y'all are doing well. So, y'all, we are doing, again, kind of the same way. Hey, John, how's it going? Excuse me. Hey, Mama. We're kind of basically doing like what we did the other day here. We are going to go live for I got a few hours to kill. So I was like, let's check in. I had to work all day yesterday. Now I have like just not work, but work, you know what I'm saying, to do today. So, but I wanted to do, oh, cool, Tori. I wanted to see what's going on in the trial. So that's what we're doing. We're waiting for them to start broadcasting, allegedly 11 o'clock, but y'all know how this goes. Once it comes on, I'll make their screen bigger, mine smaller. I'll mute myself. I'll be talking in the chat when they like take breaks and sidebars. We'll talk and conversate, you know, whatnot, you know, that kind of thing. Okay, you know, that's how we do it. And that's it. So if you are brand new here, this is the podcast channel. So over here we do live chat, stuff like this or whatever. My main channel is the same name, but without the podcast. So just reporting live from my sofa. That's where I do more edited, non-live, you know, those kind of videos over there. Hey, Agent, how's it going? So be sure and check both of them out. And once we get into the trial, I'll do more like, say, updates, stuff like that on the edited channel. I'm not going to probably do any of that for this just because it's jury selection. It has been an interesting process to watch. So I watched day one. I did not watch day two. And in fact, let's get my favorite little people pulled up here. Nate Eaton is who I'm mostly thinking about, to follow them on Twitter as things go. Cause there's people in the courtroom, reporters, other YouTubers. You can kind of get that, you know, on the ground type vibe going. Although Nate hasn't done anything today. Let's see here. Let's see what they're doing. Okay, Justin them. What's all Justin up to? Justin hasn't posted anything. Kathy Rusin, let's see what she's saying. She's covering Young Thug. That trial has gone on forever, y'all. Young Thug trial. Oh my God. We were talking about the other day in chat. I was like, I mean, that's like a regular TV show. I mean, and I haven't really even, it's some kind of like, I guess a RICO act or something like that. I don't know. But woo, I mean, that trial has gone on and on and on and on. Okay, so this is what this says. This is Kathy from Long Crime. She says, day two of jury selection ended yesterday with a total of 20 qualified jurors. They need 50 before each side can start using their peremptory strikes. It's on track to get a jury by the end of the week. So, I mean, they're saying the end of the week. Oh, Jenny says pretty lies and alibis. Let me go look her up. Is that what she's called on Twitter, Jenny? Pretty eyes, pretty eyes. She does have pretty eyes, but pretty lies and alibi. Hold on, let me go look over here. Hold on. Pretty. Yeah, because I like to sit here also. Once this there she is. Okay, yeah. Pretty lies. Okay, where are you? There she is. Okay. 2 minute live streaming day 3 of the jury. Okay, yep. And jury, yep. 29 jurors. Okay, yep. We have 29 potential jurors have moved on. We need 30 more. Okay. Yep. Okay, yep. I just received coffee from Becky. Oh, that's cool. Okay. Okay. I'm planning to do lunchtime lives during trial for okay, yep. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Yep. So we got it. We're in a hold pattern, everybody. Um, yeah, hidden true crime there at the thing, like actually there. Gigi has some summaries. Okay, cool. Bum, 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 bum. Okay, let's see. Let me catch up here. And good morning, Jennifer. I think it's super boring snooze fest. Could be because I have no idea. Yeah, that's my like, and I feel like okay. So with Young Thug on trial, I feel like you had to be there from the beginning of this because it is so. I mean, it's going on. I feel like for months, y'all. So it's almost like in my mind, I'm like, you had to have been there in the beginning. It's not something you can like tune into, right? Hey, Miss Dirty Bird, how's it going? Hey, PTSD. Hey, Rambo. Hey, Leanne. Um. Hey, Upstate. How's it going, Miss Dirty Bird? Um, so yeah, I just feel like you kind of had to be there. Hey, Veronica, from the very beginning, right? For Young Thug. So, and a lot of these are this way. This is going to be, I mean, Chad's trial. Hey, Murder Nerd, how's it going? Chad's trial is going to be long and detailed, and hey, True Crime with Amanda, what's up? Um, oh, Kazoo says they had to restart the trial. Well, that would make sense why it was so long. Hey, Tina. So for those just joining, let me put my little thing in here so we can get it across the bottom of the screen. Banners. Boom, boom, boom. Edit. Day 3. 30 more potential jurors are needed. Okay, save. Let's show. Right? Um, oh wait, let me get back over to the screen. Sorry, hold on, please hold. How do I get rid of this? Comments. There we go. Okay, there we go. Hey, Lisa. I see bits of it on Anthem, but that trial is so big and long and crazy. I know, right? Okay, y'all. So, side note. Let's go on a side note before they get started here. Does anybody, first of all, for those who are on, I didn't know, I know this through TikTok, but now it's gotten out to the mainstream or whatever. Does anybody know? Y'all are gonna be like, oh my god. Does anybody know who JoJo Siwa is? Okay, if you do, just drop it in the comments, whatever. If you know like her brand or her personality, the whole 9 yards. Um, okay, so JoJo C. Wait, let me mute this one. Okay, so is anybody watching what? Yeah, from Dance Moms. Okay, is anybody watching the debacle that is going on TikTok with her and her rebrand that is coming out April 5th, I think. Is that what month we're in? Yeah. Um she is doing a rebrand, and it is like turned into a debacle on TikTok because of she's trying to be like the bad girl or whatever. And so essentially her song is called Karma, and you just have to look it up to see. She has this choreographer, she's been doing sneak peeks at it, and everyone's finally like, "Oh, wait, it's not the dance that's bad, it's JoJo," when they watch all her dancers and everybody do it. I can't tell if she's trolling us. I can't tell if she's trolling us. And then what she did, her outfit is literally JoJo, but it's like instead of like rainbow color glitter stuff, it's black and white. And everybody's literally saying she looks like a WWE wrestler. It is so cringy. And I feel bad because I'm like, please let this not, because first of all, she said this in an interview, she's not a singer. And so she's coming out with this song trying to, be this bad girl, like, I was a bad girl. Dun, 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 dun. And she even says, I effed up. I mean, it's y'all, it's so people are doing like dissertations on this, like, right, like in depth stuff, like on TikToks, like found her like trying to discern, is she for real? Is this like what's happening? And like what is her team saying? Because you're watching her do this and her dance, and it's like, why are they letting her do this? Like they're standing right next to her. Like it's like what is going on? I'm so afraid for her because I get she has to grow up. Remember, the girl's 20, and let's not call her girl. She's a young lady, right? I mean, she's a young woman. She's 20 years old, and she's talking about background. I'm like, honey, what are you talking about? Like, she rode out that image, that Nickelodeon, that Disney, that squeaky clean rainbow glitter thing for way beyond what it was worth, or time, its expiration date. And I mean, I get it. That's where she's made her millions, right, on that image and whatnot. Hey, Audrey, we're taking for those joining, we're doing a quick sidebar on JoJo Siwa cringe that's going on right now until it starts. But then it was like, to me, I was like, well, I thought you already did the rebrand. Like you came out, you did Dancing with the Stars, you were doing the stuff. And now it's like she's gone back to the thing, her character, but like a, a, a different outfit version of it. I don't know. Um, it's bizarre, and I feel so afraid. Literally, people are like, "It's giving J Lo." If you've been following the J Lo's public, the public is over J Lo on TikTok, um, and they're kind of coming to the conclusion of like, "Wait a minute, is J Lo like a raging narcissist?" Like that's another rabbit hole to go down on TikTok. The comment sections are not good to J Lo right now with her new project she's done, and people are literally kind of comparing JoJo to her, like the energy she's given, because it almost seems like with JoJo, she's ignored any of what people would have to say. You know what I mean? Like being like, JoJo, maybe you should do blank instead of this. You know what I'm saying? Cindy already knows. Do you know she's from the Bronx? Oh my God, y'all. That interview that she did where they're like, what's your go-to bodega order? And she gave that generic order. Y'all, TikTok ate her up over that. I'm talking about J-Lo now. Well, literally, people are comparing JoJo to that, where they're like, wait a minute, JoJo's like almost like somebody who, these celebrities who you see, they don't pay attention to their team. They're going to just, dig their heels in the sand, do what they want to do, the whole nine yards. Yeah, same here, agent. I never really cared for J-Lo. Her music never, it's not on my playlist. Hold on. The whole nine yards. And especially now that we're seeing like, but I'm sitting here like this. Mariah's sitting over there in the corner. Like, I told y'all. She's like, I told y'all. You know what I'm saying? Mariah's just over there sipping her tea, like watching this completely unfold. Like, finally, everybody sees what I've been talking about. So, so yeah, so yeah, no, I did. When Jayla first came out, she played Selena. I mean, she was very good in there. Yeah, Asante is shy. I see it exactly. Um, didn't she invest like 20 million of her own money into the most recent movie flop? Yeah, that was her own thing. Um, exactly. It's like that's the thing with some of these celebrities where it's like, who's the real you? You know what I'm saying? Like whether it's J Lo, JoJo, or whoever, I get JoJo's gonna have to do something because it's like, yeah, that she's gonna have to reinvent herself because that money grab is gonna leave, and she's going to be left with a bunch of bows in her garage. You know what I'm saying? If she doesn't play her cards right. But the fact that she just tried to rebrand to a bad girl version of a teen bop for JoJo, it's almost like she tried to think that her audience never grew up either. And so that's where it's kind of like, you know, and again, it's like, why are you trying to sing? Like it said you're not a singer. Um, yeah. Okay. Um, have they not started this now? Oh, True Crime with Amanda. So, and Murder Nerd brought up a good point. She doesn't probably know who she really is. She's been acting like her whole life. Yeah, and whether it's J Lo or JoJo, yeah. I mean, especially, can you imagine? Like, especially as I've gotten older, and you see, especially the stuff we see in these cases we follow. Can you imagine being a child star and like just the bizarre, creepy stuff that goes on? I mean, we see the veil being lifted off Hollywood and like what it really is all about. You know what I'm saying? With all this stuff, got P. Diddy, Weinstein, all this absolutely awful stuff, right? And True Crime with Amanda. I don't know if you're on TikTok, but if you just go Google J Lo bodega order, I'm sure you will get all the content that you want, and it will lead you down the rabbit hole. But if you're on TikTok, Google her on there, and it'll be content for days. People saw through it. People just saw through it. Somebody was talking the other day. I mean, where are they now? It's about 40. It's become a trope. They always cry. Yeah, that's the thing. You see it happen time and time again. And now it's just everything's public. So we actually see it happen. You know what I'm saying? Like in real time almost. Whereas before all this stuff was going on behind the scene. Oh, wait, hold on, y'all. Wait, hold on. I've been on the wrong screen, y'all. Hold on. Hold on. How do we do this?
With regard to the defendant, the state of Idaho has alleged that Chad Daybell.
Okay, we're going to watch now. We're going to watch now. Sorry, I was on the wrong screen.
Count 1, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder and grand theft by deception. Count 2, first-degree murder. Count 3, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder and grand theft by deception. Count 4, first-degree murder. Count 5, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Count 6, first-degree murder. Count 7, insurance fraud. Count 9, insurance fraud. Mr. Daybell has pled not guilty to the charges. Please remember, that's simply a description of charges. It is not evidence. Under our law and system of justice, every defendant is presumed to be innocent. This means two things. First, the state has the burden of proving the defendant guilty. The state has that burden throughout the trial. The defendant is never required to prove his innocence, nor does the defendant ever have to produce any evidence at all. Second, the state must prove the alleged crime beyond a reasonable doubt. A reasonable doubt is not a mere possible or imaginary doubt. It is a doubt based on reason and common sense. It may arise from a careful and impartial consideration of all the evidence or from a lack of evidence. If after considering all the evidence you have a reasonable doubt about the defendant's guilt, you must find the defendant not guilty. The duty of the jury is to determine the facts and then apply the law set forth in the instructions I will later give you to those facts. In this way, you will decide the case. In applying the court's instructions as to the controlling law, you must follow those instructions regardless of your opinion of what the law is, what the law should be, or what any lawyer says the law may be. During the course of this trial, including the jury selection process, you are instructed that you are not to discuss this case among yourselves or with anyone else, including any use of email, text messaging, social media, or any other form of communication, electronic or otherwise. Do not conduct any personal investigation or look up any information from any source, including the internet. Do not form an opinion as to the merits of the case until after the case has been submitted to you for your determination. At this time, then, I am going to ask our clerk to administer an oath to the jury panel. The jury panel will be sworn for voir dire examination. If each of you would please stand at this time and raise your right hands, I'll have that oath administered.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will truthfully answer such questions as may be asked of you by court or counsel, touching upon your qualifications to sit as a trial juror in a cause now on trial, so help you God? Yes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Be seated. I'll note for the record, each one of these jurors did take the oath just given by the clerk. The clerk's now impaneled 17 prospective jurors this morning for questioning in a small group today. Will the state stipulate that these jurors have been properly called and impaneled?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Will the defense stipulate as well?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, thank you, counsel. The court will also note that the jurors, each 7 of the 17, has completed a juror affirmation indicating they've not, or they have followed the court's admonishment to not look into the case between now and the time they filled out their questionnaire last week. And I will just confirm that with the bailiffs. I am told that all of the questionnaires, or I'm sorry, affirmations were returned. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay. In this part of the jury selection process, then you're going to be asked questions touching on your qualifications to serve as jurors in this particular case. This part of the case is known as the voir dire examination. Voir dire is an ancient Anglo-Norman term dating back hundreds of years to the origins of common law, and in Old French it simply means to speak the truth. Voir dire examination is for the purpose of determining if your decision in this case would in any way be influenced by opinions which you now hold, or by some personal experience or special knowledge you may have concerning the subject matter to be tried. The object is to obtain 12 persons who will impartially try the issues of this case upon the evidence presented in this courtroom without being influenced by any other factors. Please understand this questioning is not just for the purpose of prying into your personal affairs, but only for the purpose of obtaining an impartial jury. Whenever you need to answer a question, please hold up your red card. And when you're called upon to speak, you may identify yourself with that red card number. We won't be using your names through any stage of these proceedings. Because this proceeding is being reported by our court reporter, please make verbal responses to any questions such as yes or no, and try not to just shake your head or say or because then we don't get a clear record of what's stated. In addition, try not to talk at the same time as any attorney that may be questioning you in the court, again, so we keep a clear record. If you have any response that you think is too personal or would be embarrassing to discuss in public, or for whatever reason you don't want that to be addressed publicly, you can tell us and we will discuss that in a more private setting outside the presence of others in the courtroom and individually. Also, if you have answers to any questions that you think may prejudice any other prospective jurors or any of the participants in this trial, please refrain from those comments until we can arrange again to have you discuss that outside the presence of other jurors. Also, if you have knowledge of this case from pretrial media coverage or publicity, please don't start talking about any facts of what you may know. We'll discuss that with you individually again so that other jurors don't hear the information that you may already have. I'll now read to you a special instruction that's being given in this case as follows. The defendant, Chad Daybell, has been charged in the amended indictment with certain counts of entering into a conspiracy with Lori Vallow Daybell and or Alex Cox. The crime of conspiracy involves an agreement by 2 or more persons to commit a crime. You must only consider the evidence against the defendant in this case and should not speculate as to any other case or legal proceedings involving the alleged co-conspirators. You must remember that the defendant has the presumption of innocence, and you must consider his guilt or innocence based solely on the evidence provided in this case. That concludes the court's special instruction. At this time, I'll instruct the attorneys to please avoid repeating questions already asked in efficiency, and the attorneys do have the right, however, to direct follow-up questions to a juror's responses. The jury should be aware that during and following the voir dire examination, one or more of you may be challenged. Each side has challenges, what are called for cause, which means that each side can ask that a juror be excused for a specific reason. In addition, each side has a certain number of peremptory challenges, by which I mean each side can challenge a juror and ask that he or she be excused without giving a reason for the dismissal. If you are excused by either side, please do not feel offended or don't feel like your honesty or integrity has been questioned, because it has not. And in addition, I'll note that if you are excused and you are approached by anyone after your excusal that wants to talk about case with you, once you're dismissed, you are excused from your service and you can do that. However, please bear in mind that we are in the process of trying to obtain impartial jurors. You don't have to talk to anyone who may question you. And if you do so, please respect the opinions of your fellow jurors. And also bear in mind that we're trying to keep down publicity in the case until a jury is selected. At this time, I am going to begin the court's own voir dire, after which the attorneys will be given an opportunity to make their own voir dire inquiries. When I'm questioning jurors, please pay attention to what's being asked, because you may be recalled to answer those same questions. The first question I'll ask of the entire panel is as follows. Is the information provided in your juror information forms still true and accurate? And in addition, are your responses in your questionnaire true and accurate as well? If you believe that's all still true and accurate information, please raise your red card. All right, thank you. We've got juror 1332 that did not raise your card. Is there something that you would need to correct or clarify in your
I
questionnaire?
wasn't feeling very well when I got this paper and they asked me to fill it out. Looking back, yeah, there were a few answers.
Okay, that's fine. It was a long questionnaire. I understand. We can talk to you about that probably individually or maybe further in a group, but we'll return to that. Thank you for notifying us of that. The next question.
Judge?
Yes.
I apologize for the interruption, but I saw 1378 did not raise his card, and I thought maybe he has some issues as well.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Pryor. I didn't notice that.
I just wanted to state that my work is to say that I would get compensation for being on jury if I have to. I answered that I couldn't because of that. I wasn't sure, but they said that I could, so.
Okay, well, thank you for that follow-up information as well. That will lead us into the next question, and I'll ask if this applies to you, you can raise your red card. I want to discuss the time commitment required for jury service in this case. So if you are required to serve as a juror, it's going to be for a period of approximately 8 to 10 weeks. The question is whether or not that time frame or amount of time would create a serious hardship upon you or your family or your business or profession or occupation, so as to prevent you from rendering service as a fair and impartial juror in this case. If you think you may suffer a hardship based on the length of the trial, please raise your red card. Okay, if you could keep those held up for a moment, we'll note down who we've got. All right, we're going to go through individually and talk to each of you about this at this time. And the court in this stage of the proceedings will allow for attorney voir dire also on the issue of hardship. So the first juror we'll speak to is juror 1535. I may have written that number down wrong. Do we not have that?
Got it right, 1535.
Okay, thanks. I was in a different order here. Let's talk to you first then. Juror number 1535, you did raise your red card. Let's discuss the length of the trial. What's your concern about a possible hardship if you had to serve?
The provider for my family. If I take that much time off, I don't know if I have enough money to pay the mortgage or any of that, and I don't have any vacation time at the end of the summer.
Have you had a chance to discuss with your employer the possibility of serving and whether or not there's any way that you receive any compensation if you are serving.
I haven't asked him about compensation, but he knows that I'm here today, obviously.
We don't need to get into too many details, but is this a small company, a big company? How many employees total are in your
I
company?
would say there's about 20 of us.
Okay, so small business.
Yes.
And you are concerned then, if I'm understanding, that if you're required to serve, you may just be going without a paycheck during that period?
Yep.
Are you a sole provider or is this your sole source of income?
My wife works part-time.
All right. Follow up from council, please, beginning with the state.
No follow-up, Your Honor. I think given that information, the state would challenge this juror for hardship.
All right, Mr. Pryor.
Judge, I would agree that this is a hardship.
All right, juror 1535, if you're in that kind of an employment situation, given the length of this trial, I do believe that would create a hardship for you to be out of work that long. So the court will grant the state's request without objection to strike 1535 on the basis of a hardship. Thank you for returning this morning, and thank you for filling out your questionnaire last week. You can submit that questionnaire, please, to the bailiff on your way out, and you are excused from jury service. You're welcome. Apologies for being a little out of order here, but we'll next talk to, I believe, 1541 also. Okay,
The only concern I have is that I'm a team of 3 and we are just hiring a new administrator and a temp, and I have a coworker that's going out for surgery. So my hardship would be my team at work. For that long period, and she has surgery on April 18th, be out for about 3 weeks. And we'll be training a new administrator and a temp, training a temp on April 8th.
okay, and again, without going into detail here, your employer is the county, correct?
Ada County Highway District.
Okay. And could you repeat, please, the information that's beyond the employment concerns?
My team is considered of 3 of us, and our administrator left us. We're hiring one. Hopefully we'll find out the new administrator at the end of this week. My coworker, the other procurement contracting technician, has had a back surgery on April 19th. She'll be out for 3 weeks. We are hiring a temporary employee to help and assist us, and she starts April 8th. So they'll be really shorthanded if I'm here between those 8 to 10 weeks.
All right, let me ask for any follow-up word dire from the state.
Your Honor, given that information, the state does not have any additional questions. We would actually make a challenge to this juror based on hardship, given the information she provided.
All right, Mr. Pryor, response from the defense.
And Judge, I know it's not relevant because she probably won't be on jury service before that, but I understand her stepdaughter has a graduation Friday as well.
Oh, yes, that is correct.
That-
Yes, that is correct. And it's in
That's right.
Twin Falls in the morning
So
as
Judge,
well.
given that, I think it's appropriate to excuse her.
All right, considering the request for an excusal for hardship and a motion to strike made by the state without objection, the court will grant the request, and your 1541, you're excused from service. Please leave your questionnaire with the bailiff. Thank you for taking the time to complete your questionnaire. Let's next go to juror 1585. So I know in your questionnaire, you did raise some concerns, but also didn't think it would be a hardship. If you'd like to explain why sitting here today, you believe it's a hardship, you can do that.
So previously I didn't think it would be a hardship, to be here because I thought I could finish my semester online. But my instructors let me know that that wouldn't be possible. I'm a full-time college student and I would like to finish this semester, so I only have one more to go. And, obviously being here would delay that and put me to school for another semester, so.
Okay, where are you in terms of progress through the you're currently in a semester right now?
Yes,
And when is that scheduled to be done?
beginning of May.
All right, if you were out for these 10 weeks, then you would essentially lose the semester. All right, any follow-up questions from the state?
No, Your Honor, we also had a note here to follow up on that hardship. I think given that additional information, the state would make a motion to remove this juror for cause based on hardship.
All right, response from the defense?
And Judge, in addition, if I'm not mistaken, she also, and I'm not trying to expose information, you have a 7-year-old son, from what I understand.
3,
I'm
Yes.
sorry?
yeah, 3 years.
Oh, it's a 3-year-old? Oh, I'm sorry. That more is more of the case. So not only does she have her education that she has to be concerned about, also having to, I was under the impression it was a 7-year-old. My memory must not be as I thought. A 3-year-old son, so I would just move for hardship as well, Judge.
All right, I've considered that. Noting in the questionnaire, it wasn't initially listed as a hardship, but I guess upon further consideration, the jurors thought about that and the prospect of losing a whole semester of school, in addition to these other issues brought up without objection from either side, the court would agree, juror 1588, that would constitute a hardship. So thank you for coming in and filling out your questionnaire. You can be excused with thanks to the court. Let's next talk to juror 1198. Okay, you did list some information in your questionnaire about the hardship. If you'd like to explain what information you have in addition.
I've started a job recently in the last few weeks. I guess twofold concerns. So just recently starting a job, I only have access to the person who I am replacing for just a few weeks. So just concerned that a lot of the knowledge that I should be learning will leave with the person that I'm replacing. So that's the first concern. Speaking with HR at my company, I'm only compensated for 2 weeks of jury service, and I am a sole parent. 4 kids.
All right, follow up from the state.
Your Honor, the state also had a note to follow up on that hardship and specifically what he'd indicated. I believe there was also an indication of a soccer tournament in May, and a triathlon in April.
I have since not done a triathlon, but yes, I have 2 children doing soccer.
Is that still a concern for you as well?
Yes, because I believe there will be some Fridays.
Your Honor, I think given the work hardship as well as the obligations to the family hardship, the state would make a motion to remove this juror for cause based on hardship.
All right, request or response from the defense.
Judge, I would have also moved for excusal based on hardship also.
All right, the court's considered that with the explanation from this juror that may only receive pay for a 2-week period and given the length of the trial and that he's a sole provider of income for the family. The court does find that there's been an expressed hardship requiring your excusal. So juror 1198, thank you for coming in and completing your questionnaire. You can be excused.
Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome. Juror number 1242. In your questionnaire, you didn't list any type of hardship. Can you explain?
Yes, Your Honor, I think when I had taken the test, I didn't really fully realize the implications of the time involved. As well, I've got two concerns. Number one is the hardship of work. I did have a chance to speak with my HR department, and although they grant me the time off to attend and participate in the jury, I would receive no compensation. 8 to 10 weeks of jury duty would cost me in excess of $25,000 in income. I'm 63, single, and that would have a high impact on both my potential retirement as well as my personal savings. My second concern is that last year in June, I was diagnosed with systemic lupus erythematosus, which is an autoimmune disorder. And part of the circumstances of that disease is that they have certain triggers and things like that that cause flare-ups. Flare-ups during lupus can result in hair loss, full body rashes, extreme fatigue and nausea, inability to participate pretty much in anything. And so my concern with that is that I believe that the stress and the anxiety that I've experienced in this involvement in this case would potentially impact my disease, and that could make me unable to participate at all. I could a bad day for me could last 3 to 5 to 7 days. Since my diagnosis last June, I've had 3 flare-ups. The first one lasted over 2 months. That's the first time I lost all my hair and such like that. Second one was in October and November of last year, and the last one I experienced was in February of this year, and that was about a 5 to 7 day stint. It's something that I have no control over, and I manage my diet and my lifestyle to avoid stressful situations. I also have to avoid sunlight and heat and exhaustion. And so between the loss of the income, I am a sole provider in my house. I don't have a family, but at this time I also have an elderly dog who's been diagnosed with in large part, and she is on her last, probably her last year with the family. She requires medication 2 times a day. And so I basically am the sole care provider for her. I work from home because of what my disease now. Had I needed to report to an office, I would need to go onto disability because I'm just too inconsistent. I approached my doctor on Monday to write a letter to the court explaining my circumstances. And unfortunately, I was not able to get that this morning. They were not open on my way in. But I would be happy to provide that written doctor's notice to you regarding my disease as well as the hardship of my loss of income.
All right, Juror 1242, thank you for the explanation. Does the state have any follow-up for Dart?
No, Your Honor, I think given all the information provided, the state would make a motion to have this juror removed for cause based on hardship.
All right, response from the defense?
I also move for exclusion of cause.
All right, thank you. Juror 1242, for the reasons you've explained on the record, the court does find that would constitute a hardship of service for both the medical issue as well as financial. Court will excuse you from service. Thank you for coming in and completing your questionnaire.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome. Oh, we have a card going up on juror 1204.
I would like to add my number as possible hardship, as I did enter information on the question about possible hardship.
Okay, we'll come back to you then in a moment. Let's talk to juror 1332 next.
Something you want me to- Or does he have a question?
Yeah, I'm looking at your questionnaire, juror 1332. You filled out on that part of the questionnaire and did talk about a potential hardship here. Would you like to explain that to the court this time?
Well, my hardship is basically my husband. He's the sole income for our family. We live here together, we don't know anybody, and he works in the middle of nowhere. He's on a specific diet, and I have to prepare and pack all of his food for however long he's gonna be gone. And he works on somewhat of a fireman's schedule. When the machine breaks, he has to go. So it gives us not much time, and it's kind of like being always on call.
All right, if you were able to be home each day late in the afternoon, would that give you adequate time to help prepare those meals for your husband?
You know, it's not something I can say definitely, because he could get a call at 9 o'clock at night, he could get a call at 6 o'clock in the morning, he could get a call anytime. He doesn't only work in Idaho. He works in Oregon, Washington, Nevada, and California, and Idaho. And travels through the whole Pacific Northwest, he works on giant inverter machines that transfer power to the utilities. And they're not happy when their machines go down, but other than the 2 plants he takes care of in Idaho, all the other plants are 6 hours at least one way.
All right, during the course of the trial, do you think there's a way that if you were unavailable to prepare his meals, he might be able to prepare some of those meals on his
No, he
own?
would take whatever's in the refrigerator, throw it in his lunch pack, and who knows, because he's in the middle of nowhere where he's working, he can't just hop in the car, or it's time for lunch, go to town and get a sandwich. Like, he's on a special diet and he can't eat out. So he gets really sick when he does. And I work really hard to keep him healthy and keep us going. And, he's older now, and it would be nice if he could really retire when he turns 65, but that's not the case anymore.
All right, any follow-up, Board Darrell, from the state,
I have no follow-up, Your Honor, thank you.
from the defense?
And ma'am, from what I understand, and again, I'm going off memory, but 41 years of marriage. So
Coming up on 42, we've
Please-
been together almost 45.
please
So
forgive me, we're about disclosing we're about the same age, and this has been a lifelong partner.
our whole adult life.
And one of the concerns is also in the event that you're sequestered, and you understand what that means, locked up and having to consider something.
Couldn't handle it. Couldn't handle it.
You basically have been inseparable for 41 years.
Absolutely.
And not only would that cause you a distraction and not be able to process what needs to be processed in this case.
Absolutely.
Would there be a concern? I don't even have to ask. I guess there would be a great concern about how your husband was doing it.
Absolutely.
And that would be a significant distraction.
Absolutely.
Given that, Judge, I'm going to move for cause to have this juror excused. I think this is a significant hardship.
All right, I've considered the hardship expressed with juror 1332. I'll grant the strike from both parties here. So 1332, you're excused. Thank you for filling out your questionnaire and coming in. Level 4. I believe you also had something you want to discuss. Is that correct?
I just have a family vacation, June 15th, which I think it's fall. I know I'm depending on when the trial starts.
All right, I'll defer more to counsel. They are the ones that would know best on trial length. It's my understanding we should be done by June 15th, but if the state has any follow-up to address any concerns about that time frame on this June 15th, vacation, we can follow up with that juror 1204.
Is this trip, if I can ask, is it paid for, pre-planned?
Pre-plan, it's paid for.
And would you be able to get any, money back if you weren't able to go? Right now, at least the trial is set to be, I think what was advised is an 8 to 10 week trial. So that shouldn't put you into that time frame. Do you have concerns sitting here today if it is close to that 10-week timeline even?
March out. Straight up.
Okay, the state has no additional questions at this time.
Any further board data from the defense?
I'm not anticipating going to June 15. I guess what I'm concerned about is what if we do? I don't think so. I don't want to speculate, but by the same token, Judge, I'm concerned about the distraction, and that would be a distraction if you were still doing this on the 13th or 14th. That'd be fair. And then that's what, then you just answered my question, which is, if, for instance, we stop and then there's deliberations, we start on the 13th, you're going to be highly motivated to be done by the 15th, aren't you? It's like, Judge, I'm, and please, sir, don't take this personally. We're just all trying to be fair. So, Judge, I think given that, I think I'm going to move for cause with this.
All right, response from the state.
Judge, the state would just submit on the information provided to the court.
All right, the court is at this point going to overrule the challenge for cause on 1204. We have to try to fit in this trial around everyone's schedules, including jurors, and I'm in good faith going to tell you I do believe the trial will be done not to interfere with that schedule. We can't all predict the future with certainty, so we're trying our best to move things along, and from what I see so far, it does seem to be moving along on schedule. So, Juror 1204, appreciate your concern. We're going to have you remain in the jury pool for further consideration. We go through another step of peremptory challenges after this. So, with that, the court will allow 1204 to return for peremptory challenges. Thank you. All right, the next question we're going to go through would be on knowledge of the case. And several of you, I'm sure, in reviewing your questionnaires have indicated you do have some information or knowledge about this case. If you do have any information or knowledge other than what you've learned since you've been summoned as jurors in this case, would you please raise your red card? Okay, none of you have heard anything about the case other than what was told to you in court when you got here last week? Okay, thank you. Let me next discuss the subject matter of the case. This case involves charges the state's filed, including charges of murder, conspiracy, and insurance fraud. Is there anything about those charges and the nature of those charges that you think would make it impossible or difficult for you to fairly and objectively evaluate the evidence in this case and render a fair and impartial verdict?
Your Honor.
Okay, no one answered affirmatively. I'll next ask some questions that seem like they might be very obvious, but I'm required to ask them pursuant to some Idaho statutes and law. Are any of you related by blood or marriage to the defendant or know him from any kind of business or social relationship? Okay, no one answered affirmatively. Do any of you have any kind of legal relationship with some of those involved in the court here. So does the relationship of guardian and ward, master and servant, employer and employee, creditor and debtor, landlord and tenant, boarder or lodger exist between any of you and any of the attorneys involved here? Okay, everyone answered no. Are any of you a party in any kind of civil litigation or lawsuit against the defendant, Mr. Daybell?
No.
All answered no. Have any of you ever brought a criminal complaint against the defendant or been accused by any of the prosecutors here of any crime? All right, everyone answered no. Do any of you have any kind of attorney-client relationship or previous attorney-client relationship with Mr. Pryor or his law firm? Okay, all answered no. Do any of you have any kind of a relationship by blood or marriage to any of the lawyers, or do you know any of the lawyers from any kind of professional, business, or social relationship?
No.
All right, everyone answered no. Have any of you ever formed or expressed an unqualified opinion that the defendant is guilty or not guilty of any of the charges in this case? And if you do answer yes to that, we'll talk to you individually. Have any of you formed an opinion already about this case?
No.
All right, all answered no. Do any of you have any bias or prejudice for any reason, either for or against the defendant, Chad Daybell, in this case?
No.
Everyone answered no. Are there any of you here that would be unwilling to follow the court's instructions to you as the jury?
No.
Everyone answered no to that. Do you have a religious or moral position that would make it impossible for you to sit in judgment of another or to render a fair and impartial verdict in this case?
No.
Okay, everyone answered no there. Would any of you be unwilling or unable to render a fair and impartial verdict based upon the evidence presented in this courtroom and the laws instructed by the court?
No.
Okay, everyone answered no there. One final question I call the catch-all question. Do any of you have any other reason you haven't discussed here already why you could not give this case your undivided attention and render a fair and impartial verdict? All right, everyone answered no to that. With that, that will conclude the court's voir dire examination. I'll next let the state proceed with their voir dire. After that, the defense may. Who's going to be conducting voir dire?
I will be, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Blake, you can commence.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being back with us this morning. I know this process has been long. You all had to come in last week and fill out a questionnaire, so we appreciate you sticking with us through this. As you may know, we want to just be thorough as we're selecting a jury. Both the defendant, Chad Daybell, and the state of Idaho have the right to a fair trial. So we're going to ask you some questions today. None of them are meant to offend. I don't really want to put anyone in a hot seat, but I will be asking some of you questions and I will be asking for responses. So I just want you to know why we're doing that. If I were to use the term brutal honesty, I'm going to ask some people what comes to mind. Juror 1392, if you hear the term brutal honesty, what do you think of? So just telling the truth, saying it how it is that fair? Okay, and juror 1379, same question.
I think I would agree, just honesty without fear of consequence, just being honest regardless of what the consequence might be.
And would you all agree that it can also mean not holding back, not trying to spare someone's feelings? Would everyone agree with that? And the reason I bring that up is we're going to ask you to commit to being honest or brutally honest, both today as we go through these questions with you, and also at some point if you're selected as a juror, you're going to go back once you're instructed by the judge and start deliberating with each other. And we want to ensure that anyone serving on the jury can be brutally honest, both here today and further into the process. And we all may know someone that we feel like we can go to get just the honest, how it is answer. So for me, I had my first niece, I found out when she was pretty young, she wouldn't filter her answers. So if I really wanted to know how something looked or how I was looking that day, I could go to her and she did not hold back. And so I don't know if some of you have someone like that in your life, but that's what we're asking for today. Don't hold back. Just tell us how it is. You've also heard from the judge what the charges are in this case. We have multiple counts of conspiracy to commit murder, and we also have multiple counts of first-degree murder. You had a question on your questionnaire regarding seeing graphic images. This case does involve the murder of 2 children, as well as a mother of 5. There will be some images shown, most likely. Does anyone here have concerns if they were to see images that are graphic in nature, maybe unpleasant to look at? That, and you're 1365. I think you have some children, they're older now. Does it cause you any concern, the idea of looking at images of maybe children that are graphic?
No, if it's in a court-related environment and you have to do that, and if it's going to allow more truth to come out and the facts to come out.
Thank you. And you're 1320. I think you also have children. Looks like they're adult children now.
Yes.
Does that cause you any concern, the idea of looking at images of children that may be graphic?
No, as long as it goes towards facts of the case.
And do you feel that you could look at those images and give them the weight you feel they're due in relation to other evidence presented in the case?
Yes.
Thank you. Has everyone here been on a plane before?
Yes.
When you get on the plane, you get the instruction at some point, they say, sit back, lay back, enjoy your flight. We're going to arrive at our destination at such and such time. If instead you got on a plane and the pilot came on and said, hey, I'm going to try to land the plane. I think we'll get there at this time and I'll do my best to land. Would any of you feel comfortable staying on that plane?
No.
I'm seeing that shaking of the heads, and you're 1389. I saw you shake your head no. Would you want to stay on that plane? And why wouldn't you want to stay on that plane?
Experience a pilot has to have in order to fly an airplane. If he can't even make a guess as to when he's going to get in the air, you put the boat wheels down on the ground again. Sorry, what else is he going to make a mistake on?
Thank you for that. And you're 1358. How about you?
Would be my first choice. But as you mentioned, he should have, or she should have some idea of when they will land, how to land. So no, I'm not.
And the reason I ask that is because, again, when we talk about the trial and the right to a fair trial, we want to make sure that the jurors selected can land the plane. We want to make sure that the jurors can commit to being impartial, to weighing the evidence and rendering a verdict that they believe is the correct verdict. Does everyone here feel like they could commit to that?
Yes.
Thank you. So I have a little boy, and in the mornings when he gets up, if I ask him what he wants for breakfast, 9 times out of 10, it's cheesy eggs. But there's a very specific way he wants me to make his cheesy eggs. There's a recipe I'm supposed to follow. So that recipe includes milk and eggs and cheese and salt and pepper. Sometimes he likes them a little extra cheesy too, so we got to throw that in. But he doesn't want me to vary that recipe. Have any of you had that experience, whether with a kid or someone else, that maybe there's a recipe and they like it done just so? Juror 823, have you ever had that experience?
Yes, someone.
Somewhat, okay. And juror 1204, have you had an experience like that?
Not to that extent.
Do you have kids? Are there any specific ways they like their food made or cut up or that they used to? They're pretty easygoing. Okay. And your 1251, how about you?
I'm okay with deviating from the recipe.
Okay. If you were given a recipe and told this is how you have to do it though. So, and what I'm talking about is the judge is going to give you some jury instructions, and those instructions are going to say how you have to handle this case. And he's going to give you an instruction that includes the elements of each offense that the state would have to prove. And there's going to be specific elements or ingredients. So you may look at them and think, well, and kind of like a recipe, you may think, well, if you added this or if you took this away, I think it would be better. But in the courtroom, you wouldn't be able to do that. Could everyone here commit that even if there was something that you wanted to see and you wish was an element or an element that you didn't think should be there, can everyone commit that you would actually follow exactly as that recipe or instructions written out?
Yes.
Does anyone have concerns with that? And with that, one of the things is when we get to the crime of homicide, does anyone have concerns that if it reads an actor did something that caused the death of another person, but the actual cause of death is not an element? Meaning if it is the state has to prove that a murder occurred, but one of the elements isn't the cause, does anyone have concerns with that, with following that instruction? Thank you. So today, as you headed to court, if the sky had started to turn gray, and then you got into the courthouse and we closed all those windows and we closed the blinds, and when you went outside, it was wet, your car was wet, the grass was wet, the pavement's wet, you start driving home, everything's wet along your drive, are you going to be able to determine what happened?
Yeah.
And your 823, what would you determine had happened? And your 142, how about you?
4.
Oh, sorry, 1424, I apologize, yes.
Yeah. Some type of precipitation.
And you didn't have to see it rain to make that determination, correct? So in this case, you'll hear different types of evidence, and some of the evidence you'll hear referred to as circumstantial. Does anyone have concerns that with the type of evidence presented, you would have concerns weighing that and giving the weight it's due? Do we have any football fans? I see some people nodding their heads. Juror 1358. I think Kansas City Chiefs won this year. Does that sound right? And even though it may be unfortunate, would you agree that everyone on that team should get a ring? So even though the quarterback may have played a bigger role, would you agree the punter should still get a ring? And the coach? So all those involved in that victory should get the ring. So you'll get instructions in this case, and again, kind of talking about that recipe that will say what the elements of each crime are. And it may include elements of aiding and abetting, commanding another, being involved that way. Does anyone have any concerns in following those instructions? And the judge gave you a bit of an instruction on, and it involved other co-conspirators or other individuals involved. And he's instructed you, you're not to concern yourselves with anything that's happened to them or cases. But in this trial, you may hear evidence or testimony regarding what those co-conspirators did and actions they took. In a conspiracy, if the state proves to you that there was an agreement to commit a crime, and then an additional element would be, and then one of the persons involved in that agreement took some action to further that plan to commit the crime. Does anyone have concerns if person B is the one that went out and committed an overt act or some act in furtherance, but the crime itself is the agreement to commit that crime? Does anyone have concerns holding person A still accountable? if you're following that recipe and that instruction. Thank you. I have no further questions.
All right, thank you, Ms. Blake. Mr. Pryor, board Dyer for the defense.
Judge, would the court prefer to take a break or would you rather?
Let's go ahead and move forward at this point, given the time.
Ladies and gentlemen, I introduced myself before. I'm John Pryor. I'm the attorney for Mr. Daybell. And we're going to have to ask, some questions. And I don't want any of you, please, to imply that Chad is guilty of anything, because I'm going into areas of concern, and it's just part of the process. What we're really trying to do is to get your feelings and your honest feelings about a variety of subjects. And the reason we do that is because this is an important case. It's a serious charge against Chad. And we need to get as much information about your opinions about bias, about knowledge of different topics, about how you feel. And in order to do that, we're given a very short window of time to do that. Ms. Blake asked you to be brutally honest. I'm just going to ask you to just answer the questions as best you can. I'm going to ask you to tell me how you really feel, and remember that there really isn't any wrong answer. All of us think differently. If I were to poll you on an important issue, I would imagine if there were several ways to answer it, we'd get several answers. And not everybody answers things the same way. And what's more important than anything else, each and every one of you have a very important idea and perception of how you feel about different issues. And that's what we're really after. So when I ask you questions, again, I can promise you if you ask me questions, I'd probably have different answers, and all four of us here, the four prosecutors here, myself, would probably have 5 different answers. So again, there's no wrong answer. I've spoken to some of the other jurors before, and I talked about a story how when I was a young man and I wore smaller clothes, how I was on jury service. And the lawyer at that time asked the jurors, is there anyone who just really doesn't want to be here? Now, I struggle with that because as a citizen and having been raised by an absolutely wonderful mother, an amazing father who taught me the importance of doing your constitutional duty and your civic duty, and that we live in what I think is the greatest country in the world, that you don't shirk that duty. But he also said, and I remember this, and I've continued to do this for the almost 30 years I've been practicing law. And I ask all the jurors this. I do that because all of us have a lot of things going on in our life. All of us have issues, and some things are important. Previous juror has a dog, and that's a very big concern. Some people who are dog lovers, that's a really big concern, and it's very important. Some of you have other concerns. Some of you are in the military service and having to focus on our military and protecting our country. Others have jobs where you're an accountant and you have responsibilities and potential hardships because tax season's coming up. And that's a concern. All of us have concerns. Some of us just don't want to deal with this because they find this very difficult. So I want to ask you, and I'm going to ask you to start off by just please tell me, and please be completely honest with me. This is our opportunity to share information and to kind of get an idea where all of you stand. So is there anybody who just doesn't want to do this? Just feels like, you know what, this is too much for me, or I have so much going on in my personal life that I just can't do this. And I would please ask you to be honest about that. Anybody at all? No? Okay. Now you've heard the charges against Chad. And you'd heard the judge read the charges against Chad. And the prosecutor has talked a little bit about elements, about a recipe, and I'll get to the the recipe part of this. But is there anybody, having heard the charges, immediately assumed that Chad was guilty because this judge read charges? No. Thank you. Thank you. Does everybody agree with that? No? Okay. All right. Okay. Is there anybody here who believes that Chad should have to testify in order to prove that he's innocent? No. Okay. No? Okay. Does everybody understand? And I'm going to ask you to get a little bit of exercise and raise your cards on this one. Does everybody understand that if Chad and I decide to, we don't have to put on a single piece of evidence? Does everybody understand that? Yes. And I'll try to limit the raising of cards. Thank you, folks. And does everybody understand that the prosecuting attorney must prove this case? And that if they don't prove the case, the verdict from you folks has to be not guilty. Do all of you understand that? Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. That's okay. Okay. I want to go into a couple of well, before I start that, I guess I'll go back a little bit. Again, if Chad decides not to testify, is there anybody here who's going to think that he's guilty because he chose not to testify? No. All right. Thank you. Nobody? Okay. Now, I want to talk a little bit about bias. Does everybody understand what bias is? And would everybody agree that bias is you have an opinion about something, whether it's based on fact or truth, but you have an opinion about somebody and it may influence your judgment? Would everybody agree that? And I brought my mother up a couple of times and I'm going to bring her up again. Just a tremendous influence in my life. When I was a very young man, and please don't hold this against me, anybody, please, but I'm a transplant to the state of Idaho. I'm not quite born and raised here, but I've got 30 years in, so I feel like I've spent enough time in my life that I consider myself a true Idahoan. I was born in the early part of my life was in the back east. And I lived in a neighborhood. And my mother's very best friend had a very close friend. And they didn't share the same beliefs, faith beliefs. And one day I was sitting there with my mother, and it was a very hot day in back east. In back east, it gets incredibly warm. And this person at the time, and my mother was probably 40 years of age, and they were sitting there in the backyard. And I looked over at her best friend, and on her right arm were numbers. And there were about 5 numbers. And they had been tattooed on. So I asked her, why do you have numbers tattooed? And she said to me, well, I lived in Germany for a little while. And then I stayed at a camp called Auschwitz. And I was surprised because I couldn't understand as a 7-year-old how someone would tattoo someone an arm and put numbers on there. And that was a good lesson for me, because what it showed is that there are people who have feelings so strong that they would engage in that kind of conduct. And I can assure you, you can't count the number of people who have had that done to them anymore, because most of them aren't here anymore. But that had a profound impact on me, and it was the best example of what bias was. And I want to ask you folks, is there anybody here who feels that you should judge somebody just because they may have different beliefs than you do? Please raise your cards. This is important. No.
Saying no or saying yes?
If you say no, raise your cards. Okay, unanimous. Thank you. Do all of you understand that it's important not to judge somebody because of their beliefs? Okay. Do all of you know that we all may have different beliefs? That we all may believe some things that are different? Do all of you agree that regardless of how unusual or how unrealistic those beliefs are, we have to respect people for their beliefs? Would everybody agree that? And that we can't judge someone just because they may have unusual or beliefs that we just don't find realistic. Would everybody agree? And would everybody agree that you're not going to judge a person just because they may not conform to what you think is normal or average or standard beliefs about various topics? Would that be fair to ask that of you of that? Thank you. I'm going to move on a little bit. Have any of you watched any video, audio, programming regarding this case or anything associated with this case? No? Not read any newspapers about it? Yes, I have. You have? Would you talk to me a little bit about that?
So, Mr. Pryor, if we're gonna go into detail here, I'd like to do that individually.
Okay, all right, thank you, Judge, and I'll move on.
And which juror was that, though?
That was 1242, I think.
Okay.
1424, forgive me. Now, I'm going to give you an expression. And I want to know if anybody can give me an explanation. And if you can, and you want to, raise your card and I'll ask you individually. I listen to all kinds of music. I try to be open-minded about that, but I love country music. And that was developed because when I moved here, that seems to be a natural, maybe the way we live, at least from where I live anyway. And there's a really great song that I love, and when I listen to it, it always moves me a little bit. And the song is from a guy named Dan Seals. I don't think he's alive anymore, but he wrote a wonderful song, and it says, "Everything that glitters is not gold." Is there anybody who doesn't understand what that means? Is there anybody who understands what that means? Raise your cards if you understand what that means. Okay. And I'm going to pick on 1389. So why don't you talk to me a little bit about what you think it means when you say everything that glitters is not gold?
In the physical world, there are a lot of things that can glitter. For example, like striking off a crystal.
Okay.
Glitter off a crystal with a diamond. And the other is reflective surface, so it stands to reason that it's not going to be gold no matter what.
Okay. Okay. And I'm going to go to 1379 because you've got the biggest, finest smile I've seen for at least 2 or 3 days, and it's refreshing to see someone smile like that. So talk to me, because I think you're thinking about something else.
No, I loved the very definite
Right.
description he gave. I mean, I was thinking more in not quite such a literal sense that
Okay,
just
what were you
because you
thinking?
see, just because something is shiny and sparkly doesn't mean it's necessarily valuable or gold-like. So
Does anybody look at that? Because the song really goes back to talking about relationships. And juror number 1365, boy, was that a strong nod. And I'm not going to get into your past or your history or whether you've been in the situation where something was glittery but it wasn't gold. But you talk to me a little bit about that.
I look at it more, I guess I think of like the perfectly dressed couple and they're in the perfect house and you think, my gosh, they're making, all this money and then you find out that just because it's on the surface, that deep down inside, it doesn't mean that it's glittery on the outside, but everyone always has issues on the inside somewhere.
Right. And sometimes you may be tricked into believing that something is gold when it's just glitter. Or like in our city of Idaho City, and there's and we'll go. In fact, I'm going to jump to 1378. Where am I going with this?
All the fools that's up there.
Right.
Yeah.
And we have a wonderful ski resort called Bogus Basin, right? And we all try to enjoy that when we can. Getting to the end, I think that we've got about another week or two, probably.
Yeah.
But that is where they believed that there was gold up there. So when you evaluate information and look at information, it's important that we really decide, is there really gold here or is it just glitter? Would everybody agree that we should be doing that? And I'm gonna move over to juror number 1392, because you haven't had a lot of reaction. You had a couple things. What are your thoughts on this? Everything is glitter is not gold.
I just take it that you can't judge a book by its cover.
Right. But all of us struggle with that. Would you agree with that? All of us have been in situations, whether it's a personal relationship, or whether it's a business relationship, or whether it's any kind of relationship, and we have to gauge somebody. And would everybody agree that we've made mistakes in terms of judging people who we thought may be gold, but reality is they may be glitter? Would everybody agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. And sometimes it's too late, isn't it? Okay. Now, we're here today, and you know that you're supposed to, part of your job as jurors, if you're selected, is to evaluate the evidence and make a determination. And with respect to Ms. Blake, she talked about a recipe. But when you're looking at things and trying to make a decision, in the important decisions in your life, is there always a recipe to follow? And that's 1358. And I want you to talk about that.
Very few things have recipes. She mentioned a cooking recipe.
Right.
Those have to be a little more exact, especially if you're baking. But I'm an accountant by trade. I have rules I have to follow. I have yet to find the situation that falls with those. Everything is in the gray area. So yes, recipes are black and white, but I do believe there's a lot of gray.
Right, and then I am dumbfounded how we got two accountants next to each other. With all the people here, we have two accountants. Are you folks gonna be okay sitting next to each other? No, I'm trying to be a little, probably not much. But you're right, there's a lot of gray area in major decisions that we make, right? And we just don't check off boxes before we make a major decision about something that's extremely important to us. Does anybody do that? Raise your hands if you check off boxes and follow a recipe before you make a major decision. None of you. Okay. Do all of you take some time and balance things and look at things before you really make a major decision in your life? Is that what most of you do? Raise your hand if that's what most of you do. All of you do that. Okay. Now, Ms. Blake also talked about, the plane situation. And one of the jurors, and I think it was 1392, where are you, 1392? Oh, back there again. I'm going to pick on you again. All right. Are you okay with that? Good. And I think I'm going to move to 1424 in a minute because he's sitting there very quietly. We'll get to you in a minute, but 1392. Ms. Blake talked about a plane and that you were going to make think really twice before you get on a plane if you're not sure it's going to land, right? But if you're thinking about whether a plane is going to land or not, it's kind of a guess, right? And another word for guess is a word called speculation. Do you understand what that word means? I try not to use big words because I'm not that bright. Okay, and I try to use simple words and talk very simply because a lot of times, would everybody agree that a guess and speculation are pretty much the same thing? Raise your hand if that's the belief. Not everybody, oh, looks like it, except for number 12. Oh, you did, okay, thank you. So when you're making a major decision in your life and you're trying to determine which direction you're going to go, is it a good idea to speculate about things? Ever? Raise your hand if you think it's a good idea to speculate when you're making a major decision in your life. You do? Okay, all right. And again, there's no, thank you, 1251. There's no wrong answer. So talk to me a little bit about when you speculated making a major decision.
Had to make major decisions without having all the information.
Okay.
So I'm just thinking through how to go.
Okay. So you've done that. So if you've been given all of the information and you're told this is the information that you have, And that you have to make the decision based on all the information that you have. And that's the information you have to use to make your decision. Do you think it's a good idea to speculate about other things that, well, may affect it or may not affect it? Or you make that decision if you've been told you're only allowed to follow what's been provided to you? Is that fair to speculate in that situation? Anybody? If you think yes, please raise your hands. Thank you. I'm going to go into 2 more areas and then I'm done, I promise, okay? And I'm going to go to 1424 this time. The prosecuting attorney, it was Ms. Blake today, talked about graphic pictures and seeing graphic pictures. And in the context of the media and these folks who, you know, put things out on the media, would you agree with me that sometimes the media portrays images to get a reaction? Does anybody disagree with that? Does everybody agree that the media tries to sensationalize things to try to get you to get a reaction and to think something in a certain way? Is there anybody who disagrees? Raise your hand if you disagree with that. Nobody. So when you're showing these sensationalized pictures, the instinct is to react to them. And the instinct is to feel affected and to move in a certain way to do that, like in the media. Would everybody agree with that? You don't have to raise your cards, just nod your hand if everybody would agree with that. Trying to elicit a reaction. So you're going to see very graphic pictures. And I told the folks yesterday that these pictures are going to hurt your heart. They're going to hurt your heart. And there's no way you're not going to have a reaction to these pictures. It's not possible if you have a heart. But what I'm asking for you folks to do is to look at the pictures and view the evidence, but don't allow it to sensationalize. Take the evidence as it is. But does anybody think it's fair that because these pictures are graphic, that you should automatically presume that Chad is guilty because of these pictures? Does anybody believe that by looking at graphic pictures, you should automatically presume that Chad is guilty? Does anybody believe that? No. Okay. And all of you can promise me, if there's anybody who can, please raise your hand. Please raise your hand. Can all of you agree that when you look at these graphic pictures, that you're not going to immediately presume that Chad is guilty because of these pictures are just so heart-wrenchingly graphic? Could everybody agree with that, please? Yes. Thank you. And this is the last topic, and I promise it's the last topic. I want to talk about people and honesty and how you judge honesty. I'd like to see if there's anybody here, and I'm going to put my hand down because I don't apply to this. Is there anybody here who's been honest 100% of the time in their entire life? Raise your hand if you've been honest 100% of the time in your entire life. I'm gonna hold my hand down. I'm sorry, you had a reaction. I'm gonna get to you now. You just prompted somebody back there too. I'm gonna start with 1320 because you had a big smile and I haven't had a chance to talk. We haven't had a chance to talk yet. So what kind of instances do you run into? You find that someone has not been honest. What are the scenarios when you find people are dishonest? Business relationships, have you run into that? Yes. Where you're dealing with someone in business and they don't necessarily are honest. Personal relationships. Yes. Anybody been in personal relationships where people have not been necessarily honest? All of us, maybe most of us. Okay. And we're going to go back to juror number 823 because you had a reaction. I think it's from the gentleman by. Talk to me about your views on honesty.
I think most people try to be as honest as they can be. But sometimes people are a little more dishonest with their feelings or to get away with,
Get away with something,
yes.
or if they're trying to stop you from finding something out about them. Or if a guy says, honey, I was working late last night, and when in fact he was at a tavern with a beautiful young lady having a cocktail, he's not going to admit that, right? And people tend to be dishonest if they're maybe doing something in a personal capacity that they shouldn't be doing. Would you find that people are in that situation would have a tendency not to be honest about everything, to cover it up?
Tendency to, yes.
Okay, anybody disagree with that? Okay, we're gonna go back to 1378 because you're the one who caused 823 to have the reaction. So talk to me a little bit about honesty.
So I recently bought a car and it was a used car from dealership.
Okay.
And someone, before they traded in the car, figured out some codes in the system, get a better trade value. Luckily, the dealership was working with me and taking care of those issues. They were not cheap issues. And I just think it's awesome that the dealership's being good to me, but I'm not very grateful I don't have my car, but I were good loaners, so I'm happy.
But you think that people maybe, or instances, whether it's a business or people, if they're trying to protect something, and it could be something very simple, they'll be dishonest, right? We talk about people who have financial hardships. Juror number 1365. The couple shows up with the fancy suits and the sports cars and all the big house and all the other stuff, and then we find out that they don't have better watch my expression, right? They don't have a what in. And that's in a sense is dishonesty as well, right? But that's a simple thing. They don't want to be embarrassed, or they don't want someone to find out about it, so they may not be truthful about situations. And that may be a small white lie, it may be a big white lie, but it's because sometimes they're embarrassed about it, right? And that's why people lie as well. And then I'm going to go to 1379 because you keep smiling again and you're catching my attention with that smile. So I think please don't stop. So let's talk a little bit about honesty and then what your thoughts are on that.
Well, it's a big topic. I think I agree with what's been said, though. I think most people do tend to try to be honest, but there are situations where maybe, budgeting the truth, there's very some feelings or that type of thing. So
Not being discovered about something they may be doing that they shouldn't be doing.
right, or through codes to get that deal, or maybe they're motivated by that. But I think generally they're motivated.
Okay. And lastly, I just want to thank. I understand how difficult all of this is. And I understand how hard it is to sit there and have me pick you out and answer questions. I really appreciate it. I hope you understand the magnitude of how important it is that I've been given this opportunity. The folks here, the prosecuting attorneys are getting reported at the same time in the court, because we need to be able to talk to you folks to get your feelings on a variety of subjects. So once again, thank you for bearing with me. Thank you for your time.
All right, that will conclude the defense for Dyer at this time. We're going to move on to some individual for Dyer with this group of jurors. This will be a logical point to take a mid-morning break. So we'll allow the jurors to be excused, and then we'll take a break for about 20 minutes or so. Come back in with our first juror for individual for Dyer questioning. I'll please rise for the jurors.
Are they on break, y'all?
All right, we'll take a break and return.
Oh, thank God. Okay. Oh, there's Chad standing up. Oh my lord, y'all. I mean, I was falling out over here. Yeah, that last one almost took me out when he was like, "We're gonna go on one more question." I'm like, "Oh my god." Okay, somebody said this earlier. I can't remember who said it, so and I'm only saying that because it's not my original thought. But about like this area where the people are used to like this kind of the way they're talking to each other. Okay, notice how all the things that we see that come out of this area, there's like they always talk in these like metaphors and analogies and like all this kind of stuff. So I mean, do we think that's why they're going heavy on like they're literally just talking in these terms? And then everybody gets so hungry to tell their little story, like, hey, I've got a little story to tell. And it's like, oh my gosh. Or is this normal when they pick out what do you call it? A jury. You know what I'm saying? Because the way they just keep going down these rabbit holes of these examples and stuff, it's like, come on. Um, and let me tell you what, prior, hold on. Not normal. This ain't normal. I'm from the East Coast. This is normal. Okay, hold on. Okay. They didn't do this when I went for jury selection. Is he in the courtroom? If you're talking about me, no, I'm not. It's somewhat normal. Prior goes into too much detail. I'm a retired prosecutor, not normal at all. Okay, not normal on the East Coast at all. From New York. Okay, so the general consensus. So do we think that this is because of where they're at and this is normal? Like that this is how they, you know what I'm saying, talk up there, over there, depending on where you're at? Yeah, Crown with Thorns says Chad looks so innocent with his baby face and quiet. I know, right? I mean, but also interesting. This group, I mean, they went through a bunch of them. I mean, that whole thing where the the hardship or whatever. I mean, they were like boom, 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 boom. Oh wait, hold on. You're the one who Lilia. I hope I'm saying your name right. You were who I think said that earlier. This is from like a Sunday school. It's in the Mormon church. This is how they speak. Okay. Yes, you were the one who said that earlier. That's what it feels like. You know what I'm saying? It has that vibe, and that's why I'm like, is this why this is this way? I think that's an excellent point. Yeah, the cheesy egg thing and all this, and then it's like, and I get it's like, hey, we want everybody to dot their I's, cross their T, all that type of stuff. But yeah, it's like, and it is interesting to see this process, right? Because a lot of you have said I've never watched. I haven't either. I mean, I've seen a little bit on stuff, but not like really paid attention to it. Um, Elizabeth says she's done 2 juries in Nebraska. This is abnormal. I'm surprised that Chad's right. A bunch of juries. I know, right? Agent KK. I can totally see him doing that. Um, when he was saying the thing about the pictures towards the very end, and Chad just over there, and I'm just like, how? I mean, I can't imagine, right? He's just sitting over there like a little doofus, and it's like, yeah, the pictures are from your backyard, Chad. You know what I mean? And this is the thing, we're still on what, day 3? Pryor's just getting fired up, and hey, old soul, how you been doing? Chad looks like a baked potato in a shirt. He really does. Now I was getting hungry. I was like, look, But like I said, that whole thing with the hardship stuff, they got them all that. Oh, I found a couple of things I wanted to show y'all. Let me see if I still have it up. Oh, where'd it go? Hold on, please hold. Okay, this came up on my. Let me see how this works. This came up on my newsfeed while we are sitting here. Can you see it? That's the picture. So that's a guy chasing a turkey. It says, Wild Turkey aggressively claims North Carolina elementary school carpool lane as his territory. Principal uses umbrella to shoo away aggressive animal. It's the man with the umbrella for me. He's chasing the turkey. Which I mean, yeah, for especially little kids, those things can get mean. But I'm like, well, man, these turkeys are out of control up in here. Um, Revenge of the Turkeys. Yeah, I was like, wow. Oh, I'm eating a skinny pop popcorn, 80 calories a bag, and it's good. It's real good. David says, I'm about an hour east of Charlotte, loving the wild turkey in the carpool lane, right? Yeah, that turkey was like, come on, people. You can imagine him around pickup hour. That turkey's like, why are y'all in my house? What are you doing? And the turkey's like, come on, get out of here. You're just scary. Yeah, right? I mean, think about, I mean, turkeys are huge. I don't know if y'all like, we've got wild turkeys. They're big. I wouldn't want one coming after me. Right there at Civic Duty, Cemetery. Yeah, I think so. I think most people do. Like, they want to do a good job. They want to be able to be there and do that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, I agree. Agent says, like, it's not November. Yeah, right. He's using the umbrella for now till November rolls around, right? Then it's all bets are off then. Oh yeah, skinny popped white cheddar cheese. Yeah. Snow White says, my friend laced a turkey that was chasing her once while we were hiking. I mean, I mean, they could seriously hurt you. All jokes aside, if a wild turkey got a hold of you, most any wild. That's one thing that blows my mind when you see these videos of people like trying to approach wildlife. I'm like, like, what do you think's gonna happen? It's like when my dogs will chase the deer, and of course, you know, not Roscoe, but the other dogs that we used to have, smaller dogs that run after a deer, and I'm like, honey, if that deer caught you, you know, you don't know what it's gonna do. Swans and geese are meaner. Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah, sure. We've got. Bye, Denise. I get it. I get it. I figure what we'll do is we'll make it through this group, and then I'll have to knock off because it's already 1 o'clock. They haven't even gone to the personal questioning yet. You see how long it takes, though, right? I mean, but they wiped out a bunch of them. But yet the lady. Let's talk about the lady. It was my understanding. You tell me that. Oh my god. Oh, I have a Carly Russell video coming out, Jennifer, about her sentence. It's taken me a while to get to it. Pomeranians are mean. Little dogs and stuff like that. I mean, even Roscoe, especially not, I mean, he doesn't have any teeth at this point, but one dog, one person kind of dogs. You know, turkey pot pie. Yeah, I was hungry, and I ate lunch right before we went live. Now I forgot what we were talking about. Oh wait, another thing too. For those who were in the pre-conference, yeah. So first of all, I was looking at the wrong screen. I was looking at the screen of like the live stream on YouTube, and it's like 10 minutes behind. So I was over here just talking about JoJo Siwa and her new rebranding flop. And Okay. So this, I'm going to show you a picture. So for those who were around here, before we were talking about JoJo Siwa, I'll just show you a picture real quick. This is her new look that she's debuting. That's the flop that's going over, and we'll get the ladies' lunch. So people are comparing her to Gene Simmons' Kiss. That's what I was talking about. I mean, literally. Um, it's crazy. Okay, so um, the lady who made the lunch for her husband, um, her husband is indispensable to the function of the entire Pacific Northwest power grid and could go caught any moment, but no one knows what would happen. She'd be faced with preparing. I mean, seriously. Oh my god. I mean, and like, and she says, that husband is okay eating burger. I mean, I can't believe they let her out either. I mean, you wouldn't want her, you would not want her on the jury, right? I mean, with that excuse right there, it's like she clearly doesn't want to be here, right? We don't need to, she does not need to be here, okay? Um, but nonetheless, it's like, come on. You know, I was just like, really? Is that where we're at? I'm like, I mean, if that's because I mean, I know, I mean, that's just how it goes. So when I was a kid, and this is like going obviously back several a long time ago. Granted, my dad would wear a uniform, like a literal uniform for his job, but my mom would put his uniform out on the bed in the mornings. I don't really do lunch. I ate at school, like I ate at the school cafeteria or whatever. But like she would have like all that stuff laid out for him. You know what I'm saying? And this is reminding me of that. I mean, we're talking different generations here, right? But she'd have his stuff laid out. My dad didn't. I don't know if he took a lunch. I can't remember what he did. My mom, even now, my stepdad, she'll make his little. Now he'll make his own lunch or whatever. But she would like to get up and make his lunch for him. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and in this one, so I'm jumping around from thought to thought here while I can. Carly finally spoke. Her little apology for the court. That's what I focused on. So like this lady getting up there talking about, yeah, my mom made my dad. So yeah, I mean, I get what she's talking about, but in this scenario, it's like, girl, really, he can't handle himself. I mean, like you were saying up there, Bob, he's responsible for the entire power grid, but God knows, don't put a damn loaf of bread and some cheese and ham in front of him. He will fall apart. She just didn't want to be there. She just didn't want to be there. Yeah, exactly. Vibes, you hit it right here. Wait, hold on, where'd you go? Nothing wrong with taking care of your significant other, but don't make it into a lame excuse. Good. Exactly. It's like, come on now. You know what I'm saying? Bye, Cindy. Um, you know, it's just, it is what it is. Oh. See, with Carly Russell, this is what I wonder, because you know they hit her with like $18,000 restitution. So I'm like, is mom and dad gonna write a check for that? You know what I'm saying? Because she looks like I mean, her parents seem to have a lot of money. Um, you know, so it's like, is mommy and daddy gonna write a check, or are they gonna make her learn a lesson? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, right, Elizabeth. It's like, well, whenever I have issues like that, I don't want to be here. What would legit happen if I was like, look, I'm just gonna be real honest with y'all. I want to serve justice and all that. I cannot guarantee that I won't fall out with my eyes open. It might look like I'm here, but I would have been asleep for like 20 minutes. I just legit don't want to be doing this. What can you say to that? You know what I'm saying? Like, what can you say? Oh, I need to look that up, Asian. Around the check. I believe Dad would be more hesitant though. Who's got Cheryl? Carly Russell is like the most recent Sherry Papini. Okay, like 2.0. Carly pretended to get kidnapped basically. She called 911 from the side of the road talking about there's a toddler walking around, like she was going to help, and then she disappeared into thin air. She reappeared a couple of days later at her parents' doorstep talking the whole story about being abducted, people with orange hair, Cheez-Its. I mean, it was wild. Well, the story quickly fell apart. And she admitted to making the whole thing up. No one like technically knows why she did it. However, her man did the rounds on social media. Um, and you can basically put two and two together that something probably went down with her man. This is my opinion. I don't know this for a fact. And she was trying to get some attention. And so she was going to do something like that. That's what I think happened. And it's unfortunate because obviously you do something like that, you've got some serious stuff going on upstairs, right? She seemingly, you know, nurse, it was going to be a nurse, all this stuff. Seems to come from a very nice, well-to-do family. Maybe didn't teach her, you know, accountability or whatever, but the state will now. And all that thrown away. I know, right? She did put Cheez-Its on the map again. And like I said, the thing I was like, she carried TikTok content and that app on her back for like 2 weeks straight. That's all that app was, right? The way it is, like right now, it's like JoJo Siwa and J Lo. It was Carly when this went down. I mean, I'm talking some good content. Yeah, stole from her job, toilet paper, all sorts of stuff. It was trifling. It was trifling. Left her wig on the side of her. It was bad off, y'all. I mean, it was like a real, just like sorry attempt at an attention grab. It was really, it was really bad. But the whole thing is so then when they do this kind of stuff, when people like her, Sherry Papini, these people, they it makes it near impossible, not near impossible, but for people who really go through these kind of, you know, they're victimized like this, it makes people like, but did she, are you lying? You know what I'm saying? And then the obvious, all the money that it cost, because I mean, this went nationwide, her neighborhood, her church, all the people. Can you imagine her in Sunday school the next week? You can never show your face. The wig is what was okay. This is what was so funny. So like like if you followed the Carly Russell thing via TikTok, and it was like people first started talking about like just the story alone in the wig, right? And so like people started coming out like talking about nobody wanted to say it, but then some people were like, I don't want to say this because I don't want to be that person, but I don't know if I believe this really went down like this. And so people started coming forth with all this stuff, y'all. And then it just unraveled. And then it turns out, like, apparently she was, yeah, in a hotel. Hold on. In a hotel room, wig lifting the rolls of toilet paper. Jeez. This is literally what ended up happening. And even the prosecutor at sentencing was like, all the video footage shows she's just like haphazardly walking back to her parents. And then when she gets close, she runs up, acting all in a flurry and fluster and all this. Oh my God, y'all. I mean, yeah, it was again, TikTok really should have cut her a check and Cheez-It should have too. Just that right there. They should help pay the restitution because I know, especially Cheez-Its, I know they had a bump in sales. Just people buying the boxes, I did too to make content. So, yeah, I mean, it was next level. Next level. Now, also, I made a video and now I'm going to have to make another follow up to the video on Gypsy Rose because I haven't done anything on Gypsy Rose in a while, but she split up with her husband. And I was like, okay. And so I talked to so many of y'all about this in the emails and comments and stuff like that. So I made a video. Well, already exactly what I thought. Now there's talks of this ex of hers, not the one who did the murder of her mother, but other ones, talking to her again. And I'm like, here you go. This is going to be a dumpster fire. Oh, thank you, Emily. Emily gifted some memberships, 5 of them. Woo! He's back with X and got magic tattoo. Yeah, see, I think I'll do the Gypsy Rose video tomorrow morning because it's already not obsolete, but that information came out after I had already edited it and got it ready. So, yeah, no one's surprised over that. I mean, it's just, it is what it is. It is what it is. Um, it was totally going to happen. Have they not come back on yet? I mean, am I missing something here? Let's. Okay, no, we're still waiting. Yeah, got matching tattoos. I mean, that's the whole thing. I know. What's so interesting with the Gypsy roasting is how much she came out. And here's the whole thing. I mean, we already know this. All of that whole case. She gets out. He said 20 minutes. Okay. Asking ye shall receive. I'm gonna mute myself. We'll be talking in the chat and then listening to them and come back up later. Okay, do y'all see behind Chad? Is that Larry and Kay? Do you see where I don't know if you can see my pointer. Not behind him, but like behind his section. You see where it looks like she's wearing yellow, maybe? Is that her? Pardon me. Are they not there till next week? Okay. Hey, MB, how's it going? Mm. You're right. It's so blurry. I'm thankful that they were televising it or whatever. Pardon me. But yeah, these courtroom cameras like this are kind of frustrating, right? They're so blurry and small. I know, side note, I said this earlier, but now that we're waiting or whatever. So for those of you that either met me through or followed or whatever and know about it, pardon me, I did that reading of Chad Daybell's book, One Foot in the Grave. One Foot in the Grave. And I basically had them put the whole thing series together into one compilation. It's like right under 4 hours. I'll post it Sunday morning. And so it's all the old videos, but just edited together. So it's just one big read through of the entire book and not broken up into a whole bunch of little videos. But I still have the playlist there too. Excuse me. So I was listening to it this morning just to make sure it all went through, and I was like, oh my gosh. It's very insightful. I mean, it's a cringe read, obviously, but again, just to see how, like, what's his name, Chad thinks, which is, you know, uh, not that pretty, but you know what I'm saying. Um, yeah, Chelsea. Yeah, they got rid of her. Okay, let's see. Oh, thank you, Chrissy, for the super chat. And okay, cool. I wanted to think you were spamming me. I'll check it out. I haven't gotten to my email, to be quite honest. I got to go through it. But yeah, I'll look into that because I'm very curious to learn about that. Flashback. Yeah, the Ruby Diary. I was glad to be done with that. Let me tell you what. That thing. And I was talking earlier about this. This is Ruby and Jody. So the next thing I'm doing, I'm still going through all that evidence bit by bit, but the video of them pulling the rope out that had the handcuffs on it, I was like, this is what she was using. She's like, I tied him to me. What? Okay, here we go.
Okay, let's go back on the record then, CR 2221-1623. We are going to now conduct individual for dire of this remaining panel of jurors. And we'll be starting with juror 823. So if we could please have the marshals have that juror brought in. While we're doing that, I will note on the record that the defense is present as well as the defendant and the prosecution as well. All right, thank you, juror 823, for returning this morning. We've got some additional questions on individual voir dire. And I'm just taking a moment to review the questionnaire again. One thing I'd like to just bring up, because our schedule is set and everything's important here. I did note that I think you didn't appear when you were supposed to, but you did appear today, so we're happy you're here. And not to necessarily call you out on the spot, but I do think it's important we have jurors that are able to follow the schedule and be here dependably. And I would like to know if there was some explanation as to why you weren't able to appear when summoned. Was there some confusion there? Did something happen to prevent you from appearing before?
No, Your Honor, no confusion. It was just a honest mistake. I used my phone as my alarm clock and it came unplugged or something. And regardless, my phone died overnight. Woke up already too late.
Okay, I understand. We had a couple of relative peers and I guess just a bit of a follow-up on that. You generally consider yourself to be dependable enough that if you move forward in this, you'd be able to make it here when you're supposed to each day?
Yes, very. I'm in the military and it's we're on time.
Okay, that's all I needed to follow up on that. I just wanted to make sure we had some answer there. The other issues we would look at this time is whether or not there was any kind of a hardship or bias issue. And with this particular juror, I didn't see anything of concern as it relates to bias and getting no knowledge of the case nor of hardship. So I don't have any follow-up question on either of those areas. Does the state have any follow-up for the juror on hardship or bias?
We do not, Your Honor. Nothing from the defense.
Okay, so there's one other topic we'll talk to you about individually, then juror number 823. In your questionnaire, you filled out and completed a section on your attitudes regarding the death penalty. And that is in your questionnaire starting on page 12. Do you recall when you filled out your questionnaire thinking through those questions and answering those?
Yes, I do.
Okay, are the responses you made still your feelings about the death penalty now that some time's passed since you filled that out?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, I'll advise you that in this case, it might be necessary for you to make that determination in regard to the imposition of the death penalty or some other penalty. And as you're thinking about that, consider that that's not a hypothetical because this is the case before us. So you have to consider that as if any punishment you consider would be absolute and carried out in the case. So as you think about that, I'll go through your questionnaire responses, a few of those. And on the first one I'll address with you, the question is, do you support or oppose the death penalty? And you said you support the death penalty. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. The next question I'll look at was on the following page. You were given a series of choices about what would most accurately represent the way you feel. And you picked choice C, which reads, I generally favor the death penalty, but I would base a decision to impose it on the facts, law, and instructions in the case. Do you recall selecting that answer?
Yes.
And does that describe your feelings about the death penalty?
Yes.
Okay, I just have one more question for you then. Do you believe, or is it your personal belief that you would always be in favor of the death penalty in every case where a murder's been committed?
In every case, not necessarily, no.
All right. Thank you for your responses to those court's questions. Does the state have any questions on voir dire relating to the death penalty?
We do not, Your Honor.
Does the defense have any questions?
Just a couple questions. Certainly. This is
Mr. Pryor.
Oh, microphone.
oh, my goodness. You said in every case, no. Can you give me some insight into, is there a line there where you say, you know, this is an absolute for the death penalty, or this is not an absolute? Is there some sort of black line that you draw, or can you elaborate on that for me a little bit?
Well, it's, you know, every case is different, obviously. Different circumstances, such as, it's not specified whether it's, you know, an intentional murder or like an accident, or, you know, just all sorts of different things could be, you'd have to weigh in on, I think.
Okay. So if it's an intentional murder and there are children involved, is that an automatic death penalty?
No,
Okay. When you looked at the list and then you had the options from A through F, A, B, and you know what? Murder is death penalty. If you could refer to that, I think it's page. Bottom of page 13. Let me know when you're there.
I'm there.
Okay. So when you read that, was there any hesitation to choose between C and D? If there was and I'll ask you to answer that first.
Not really, no.
Okay. If there was one that said neutral, that I'm going to make up my mind based on each and every one individually and not just rubber stamp yes or no on the death penalty, would that be closer to your beliefs?
Yes,
So if, again, if there was a neutral choice where you would say, listen, I've got to hear everything, and then there's just there's no criteria for, like a recipe, let's put it that way. That, quite frankly, you have to look at the facts, and it's not just because there are kids, or not just because it was intentional. You have to look at the whole story to determine whether or not that's where you're going to go. Would that be fair?
I'd say yes, yeah.
And sir, thank you for your time. Judge, that's it.
All right, thank you, counsel. Juror 823, then that will conclude the individual board diet for you. You'll go ahead and return to the jury room, and we'll have further instructions for you here after we talk to the other jurors.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next juror we'll have brought in, please, 1204.
Yo, what I'm thinking is I'm going to knock off around 2 o'clock like I did the other day. They might not be done with this first group by then. Yeah, Chad's just literally sat there, like barely moved a
All
muscle.
right, juror 1204, welcome back. Thank you for returning for individual board diet. At this stage, we're going to have a few questions beginning with questions about bias. We've already talked, I think, probably sufficiently about the fact that this juror also has a vacation partially paid for or paid for. They don't want to miss starting June 15th, but I think we're through that issue. So counsel, there is some indication this juror has previous knowledge of the case, and I'd like to have any questioning counsel requests relating to potential bias from media exposure. So I'll start with the state asking any questions and then allow the defense to board diet individually this juror.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir. I just wanted to briefly discuss with you the media attention in this case. And you indicated in your questionnaire that you had heard a little bit about this case from Basic News. Is that correct?
That's
correct. And that you had heard from the news that Mr. Daybell was involved and that he would be going to trial at some point.
Correct.
During this trial, you're going to be instructed that Mr. Daybell is innocent until the state meets its burden of proof, and that is proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And that means that as Mr. Daybell sits here today, he's innocent. Do you understand that? I do. Do you understand that nothing that you've heard on the news is evidence? Now, when you learned on the news that there would be a trial at some point, did that lead you to form any conclusions about his guilt?
No.
Okay. And you indicated on your questionnaire that you had not formed an opinion on this case. Is that still accurate? And you also indicated on your questionnaire that you would be able to put out of your mind what you have read or heard about this case and render an impartial verdict. Is that still accurate? Thank you very much, sir. I have no additional questions for this jury, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Ms. Beatty. Mr. Pryor for the defense.
Thank you, Your Honor. Which I have done as far as hardship.
Okay. All right, Mr. Pryor, could I get you to repeat that again with the microphone? We didn't catch it on our audio.
Judge, I have nothing on hardship and bias on this.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pryor. The next section we'll look at then is in your questionnaire, juror number 1204. Do you recall reading through and filling out questions relating to your attitude regarding the death penalty?
Do.
All right, and are the responses you made in the questionnaire still the way you feel about that as you sit here today? All right, you indicated when given the option of support or oppose, question, do you support or oppose the death penalty? You said support. Is that correct?
That's correct.
In addition, there was a section that gave you some pre-written responses to choose from, and it's which one most accurately represents the way you feel. You circled in the questionnaire what's labeled as 6C, and that reads, I generally favor the death penalty, but I would base a decision to impose it on the facts, law, and instructions in the case. Is that still the way you feel about the death penalty today?
It is.
Okay. Another question then. You are in favor of the death penalty. Do you believe that the death penalty should be imposed in every case where a murder has been committed?
Answer that. No.
Okay. Is there anything about your views on the death penalty that you think would either substantially impair or prevent you from following the court's instructions about the death penalty, whether that was to consider it or to not consider it in this case? Okay, thank you for your responses. I'll let the state continue with Fort Dyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, you indicated on your questionnaire that you believe that the death penalty has its time and place and that it is not to be taken lightly. Is that how you feel still, as you said for today? And so you would be able to consider the state's presentation and anything presented by the defense during the death penalty phase and give that fair consideration before you make up your mind whether or not the death penalty is appropriate if the case should proceed to that point. Is that correct? Thank you, sir. I have no additional questions for this jury, Your Honor.
All right, thank you for the defense.
Juror number 1204, could I have you turn to page 13 of your questionnaire? Now, at the bottom of page 13, you circled number C. Right. At the time that you were reading that, would you take a look at number D? Let me know when you're done. Just number D.
Okay.
Okay, if there was a choice between number C and number D, and I will tell you that when I read that, the difference between C and D is C says I favor, D says I oppose, but both folks would look at the evidence and make a determination on the facts. Do you agree with that?
Correct.
If there was a choice that said neutral, and that I'm not going to make up my mind until I've had a chance to look at all the facts and not just prejudge it, evaluate the facts and circumstances, not one way or not the other way, and then make a decision. Could that represent your position?
It could. I would say I generally, I might lean more towards neutral, but I do still support the death penalty.
Okay, circumstances. Well, in certain circumstances, and if the judge gives you instructions and say, listen, in the event we get to a sentencing phase, there are options that you have, and the two options are death penalty or life in prison. You will, before you make a decision, you'll look at all the facts and circumstances and remain neutral until you decide which one fits the facts and circumstances. Would that be fair?
Yes.
All right, Judge, I have nothing else. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Juror number 1204, then that will conclude your individual voir dire. We'll have you return to the jury room with the bailiff, and you'll receive further instructions once we've talked to other jurors today. Next, talk to juror number 1251, 1251.
So it sounds like he made the cut. You know, to go to the next. So what they'll do is they'll get this round of people, and then they'll cut them down even more. You know what I'm saying? Like dwindle the crowd down more. So that's all they're doing, and they just have to have a bunch of people to do that. And we shall see if where that goes. It's interesting to hear some of the jurors talk and to think, okay, is this a potential, like, who's going to be there? Because you can kind of like remember the first day we did it, we called her Daycare Karen, where it was like, oh my gosh, she'll talk everybody to death. You know what
All
I'm
right,
saying?
thank you for returning. Juror number 1251. Court is going to allow for some individual voir dire at this time. We've got a little bit of case knowledge, not much, and there wasn't anything in the way of hardship. If the state would like to inquire as to any potential bias, I'll allow that as well as the defense, and then we'll move on to our next topic after that.
Thank you, Your Honor. Juror 1251, just a reminder, there's no right or wrong answers. I just want you to tell us how you feel. So it sounds like you don't know much about Chad Daybell. Is that accurate?
Yes,
So you haven't followed this case in the news at all?
no,
There is one thing on your questionnaire. You say you don't have a hardship. You say, I wish I could say yes. Tell me about that. Like, why did you write that on your questionnaire?
I think anytime you're involved in a difficult case like this, that takes a lot of time and emotional energy. And just, for me, I try not to even involve myself in dramas or news or things like that. And as I was thinking about that question, I realized that because of all those things, it probably makes me a good candidate. But I just want to be honest about my exposure and hardships and all of those things. And it's like, you can make things up, but if I don't have anything, then it's like, there's no reason why I shouldn't be serving this duty.
You just used the word energy, and in your questionnaire, you said, I have 0% energy for this process.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that? And maybe you've already kind of answered that in what you just said. We just want to make sure we understand how you're feeling. So when you say you have no energy for this process, what does that mean to you in terms of actually serving on a jury in a case like this?
It's more connected to people who watch news and are into sensationalized things or just not really focusing on their own lives. And so they insert themselves in all sorts of stories and spend a lot of their time, I guess, reading news headlines, and I just don't do that. I don't live my life that way. That's why I don't watch the news. That's why I don't read articles and more.
So-
I'm in communications, so it's like I see when it's trying to get my attention or trying to get me to think certain ways. So that's why I just choose to not involve myself in headlines.
And to be fair, yeah, when you said the 0% energy, that was for the media. And so, but going back to this idea that on page 19 of your questionnaire, I wanted to ask if you can put anything you have put out of your mind. You say yes, but then you say, but do I want to be involved? No, I do not. Does that mean you don't want to be on this jury?
I was being prosecuted. I would want an unbiased jury. And as someone who doesn't know anything about this, that's where it's like, I would hope that there would be people stepping up if I was in this situation, just to hear both sides of what was going on.
So even with what you wrote, can you commit to, if you are put on this jury, that you will fully engage in that process of weighing the evidence, listening to witnesses?
Yes.
You did have one other thing that I would need to check in with my work days on the trial schedule. Have you done that? Do you know if this trial schedule, you'd be able to accommodate your work with this trial schedule?
Okay.
Sure. Okay. I have no further questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay, on that topic then of a potential hardship or bias, Mr. Fryer, you can inquire.
And ma'am, the reason I asked initially, and we made eye contact initially, is there anybody who doesn't want to be here? That's what I took from your questionnaire. And after you explained, I applaud your honesty and your straightforward answers. If I'm understanding what you're saying, listen, I don't have time for gossip. I don't have time for all of this sensationalized, and I'm going to look at this thing in a fair and balanced, neutral way. Is that fair?
Yes, and I would just say that it's more about if you wanting to be here in a way that's kind of sick. So it's like, I don't know that any of us really want to be here, but are we here? And are we answering questions honestly? And yes.
And you could find that there are people that just don't, you could understand why I would ask that. Because there are people that are just saying, you know, we run across this all the time. They make comments about and make up things to avoid having jury duty. There are people that do that. And what I'd rather do is just say, you know, folks, just tell me the truth and just tell me you don't want to do it. Because if you don't want to do it, there's no sense in putting anybody who doesn't want to do it on the jury for considering it's going to be 8 or 10 weeks. But I applaud the fact that you say, listen, I don't necessarily want to be involved, but I will do what I'm instructed to do, and I will follow the rules and listen to the court and do all the things that are expected of me. Is that fair?
Yes, I trust that by answering honestly and letting the chips fall, that's what is supposed to happen. And I can secure my integrity, but it wasn't for me to get out of something just because of my own uncomfortableness. But
You weren't trying to skirt your responsibility. You're being forthright about that, right?
Correct.
I want to thank you for that, Judge.
All right, thank you. All right, juror 1251, there's another topic we're going to discuss here individually with you, and that relates to the questionnaire and your responses on your attitudes regarding the death penalty. Do you recall reading through that section of the questionnaire and answering those questions?
I do.
And are the responses you gave in the questionnaire still accurate in terms of the way you feel about it today?
Yes.
Okay, you indicated when given a choice of whether or not you support or oppose the death penalty, you checked the box that said you support it. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, and I will advise you in this case that it may actually be necessary for you to make a determination in regard to the imposition of the death penalty or some other penalty. And when we're discussing this, you need to consider this as not a hypothetical, but that it may be required to be considered in this case, and it may be absolute and carried out in the case. So with that in your mind, you said you support it. Also, in a response when you had choices on this section 6, there were like 7 different choices. You selected choice D and said, I am generally opposed to the death penalty, but I believe I can put aside my feelings against the death penalty and impose it if it is called for by the facts, law, and instructions in the case. You recall answering that?
Yes.
And does that generally represent the way you do feel about the death penalty?
Yes.
Okay, so in the one instance when just a yes or no, you said you support, then later you say you're generally opposed but would follow the facts, law, and instructions. So is there anything you want to clarify there, or are you just kind of in the middle on that issue?
I would just hope that the death penalty is reserved for extreme case.
Okay, so you are not of the view that it should be considered in any murder case? You wouldn't believe that?
Can you repeat that, please?
So the question is, do you believe that the death penalty should be considered or imposed in any case where a murder's been committed?
No.
All right. Is there anything about your views at all on the death penalty that you think could prevent or impair your ability to follow court's instructions if you had to consider that in this case?
No.
Okay, that concludes the court's inquiry. Would the state like to inquire?
Just briefly. Your 1251, so as I read your questionnaire and listening to your answers, just to make sure I completely understand where you're coming from. It sounds like you believe there are times when it is necessary, the death penalty.
Yes.
And, but you are willing to, if the court is to give you instructions, if this becomes an option, you will follow those instructions in law to make sure it's applied appropriately.
Yes.
I have another question.
From the defense.
No questions.
All right, thank you, Juror 1251. We'll go ahead and have you return to the jury room with the bailiff and maybe some additional instructions once we talk to the other jurors. We'll next talk to juror 1320.
Yeah, she 100% is live streaming #1, and hold on, care for. I don't watch the news too, but I do watch true crime on YouTube. Yeah, like this one right here, she's exhausting. The juror person. Yeah, she sounds like an influencer. There's something up with her. I don't believe any of that. She's way too self-righteous. Way too self-righteous. I mean, just oozes off of her. Oozes off of her. Yeah, can you imagine having to sit with her for 10 weeks? Absolutely not.
You can be seated.
Okay.
You'd be like chopping your own foot off to get out of it.
Okay, juror number 1320 has returned for some individual voir dire. We're doing this with all the jurors, so don't be concerned that you're here alone. There's some question in the review of the questionnaire about some knowledge of the case, as well as you did explain potentially a hardship here. Maybe I'll just address that with you and then allow the state and the defense to question on hardship or bias. On the trial length, where you were told that in the questionnaire, and also it was reiterated here, you said you did check the box, yes, you'd have a hardship. You said, I have a job and a life to live, but I'll serve if selected. So with that, could you explain a little more what impact that may have if in fact you are serving for a 10-week period?
Okay, yeah, I looked into it since then. The work will give me 2 weeks pay for 10 days. And then I'd have to take my
time off and I wrote a month of that, so the 6 weeks of pay and 4 weeks of no pay, I guess, as I would come out. Which I found, it's not like I'd be living on the street after that, but you know, it would be
Okay.
money.
I appreciate you doing the follow-up, looking into that with your employer also. If in fact this extended out, you said you are willing to serve, very much appreciate that, and you still feel that way, even considering that it could go beyond that 6-week time frame and cause some financial strain.
Yeah, I'm not living from paycheck to paycheck, and so, yeah, wouldn't be fun, but, you know.
Okay.
I guess.
Well, thanks for your responses on that. On the bias, I didn't have any specific questions. The state can conduct voir dire on either topic, and then I'll allow the defense.
Morning, sir.
Yes.
So to follow up where the court just left off, I think I followed you that you'll get a couple of weeks pay, you've got some time off, it's probably paid time off, you can apply. About a month.
Right.
That if this goes 10 weeks, you won't get paid.
Yeah, for the last few months.
Do you feel like there's anything about that during that last month, if you were chosen as a juror, that probably wouldn't be uncommon for jurors or lawyers or judges after 8 or 10 weeks to be tired of the case? Do you feel like during that last month where you're not getting paid, did that cause any resentment? Did that cause you to be distracted at all in terms of listening to evidence or resentful that you're still there?
No, not necessarily. My wife has a part-time job, so it's, like I said, it's not like we'd be going hungry or living on the street, but maybe my 401k wouldn't get as built up as I want it to be. Maybe I won't buy that new video game or something.
All right, fair enough. Excuse me. And then just a couple of questions from some comments you made about the press coverage. You made a comment on page 415 of the questionnaire that it asked if you did follow these cases, has that caused you to already form an opinion regarding the guilt or innocence of Chad Daybell in the case? You said no, but the media reports is not necessarily the truth of facts. You still stand behind that?
Yeah. They're there to sell newspapers or screen time. They're reporting on what we get noticed, not necessarily what is the truth.
So is it fair to say though you have heard some things about the case?
Yes.
Okay. Anything about what you have heard that has caused you to form any specific opinions about the case or about Mr. Daybell?
No, not really. I mean, when it first came out, I read about it, and you know, it was interesting and so forth, but I didn't make an opinion on it because it's, you know, I know it's not the whole truth there. So,
So as you sit there, you feel like you can hear the facts and deliberate and be objective about everything?
yes, I do.
Your Honor, on bias and hardship, the state has no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Woods.
No questions from the defense, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, juror 1320, then we'll move on to one final topic with you in relation to the part of your questionnaire you completed called attitudes regarding the death penalty. Do you recall reading through that section in the questionnaire and answering it?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, and if you would like to reference it, it's page 12 and 13.
Yeah.
So considering those responses you made last week, are those still true and accurate in the way you feel today?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. I will advise you in this case, it may be necessary for you to make a determination in regard to the imposition of the death penalty or some other penalty in this case. So remember, this does apply to the case, and any penalty you're considering should be considered as if it is absolute and will be carried out in the case. So with that in mind, there was a box checked by you on the question, do you support or oppose the death penalty? check the box saying you support it. Is that the way you feel?
Yeah, I think in some cases, it's warranted by the law. If that's what the law says, then, that's what should be done.
Okay. On the next page, there were some more detailed choices you had there out of 7, and this was the questionnaires words, not your own, but you selected a choice you thought most accurately reflects the way you feel. You checked a box that said, I am generally opposed to the death penalty, but I believe I can put aside my feelings against the death penalty and impose it if it is called for by the facts, law, and instructions in the case.
Kind of contradictory, wasn't I?
And that's fine. If you'd like to explain any more about your thoughts on it, this would be the time. And I don't know that that necessarily is contradictory, but do you have any explanation on that choice?
No, it's just that, I would, no one should have to die, but if the law, if the case says and the law states that that's what's to be done and that's the punishment, then that's what should be done.
So you don't feel then, as I gather, that the death penalty should be in place or considered in every case where a murder's been committed?
Not unless it's asked for by the prosecution or the facts being that it's advisable by the law or whatever.
Okay, so one final question then, is there anything about your personal views or thoughts or feelings on the death penalty that you think would prevent or impair you from following the court's instructions on that if you served as a juror in this case?
No, I don't believe there is.
Okay, thank you for your responses. Let's have the state, if there's any follow-up or dire on that topic.
Thank you. We do, Judge. Sir, probably just a couple of questions. So on page 12 of the questionnaire, on the bottom, you had answered in a question, do you feel the death penalty is used too often? You X that box. Then you explained so much more costly to pursue than life in prison without parole. Showing not an uncommon opinion. As you consider that there, well, first of all, is that an accurate expression of how you feel about it?
Well, as far as do you feel the death penalty is used too often, too seldom? I don't know. Maybe I don't know is the right answer. I don't know. Seems like there's not a good choice there at all. Yeah, I've heard that it's more costly to pursue a death penalty.
Fair enough. And there's no wrong answers here. Where you're coming from. Yeah. So I guess my question is, if the case does proceed, if there's a conviction and then we get into a death penalty question, the judge will give you certain instructions as to how to evaluate the death penalty, whether it should apply. Will the fact that you think and believe that it's more expensive to society to use the death penalty than just life in prison, will that be anything that would dissuade you from otherwise following the instructions that the judge gives in terms of how you apply the facts and law? Will that still be a factor in the back of your mind?
No, because all the people, the prosecution, the judge, and everyone has weighed out those facts and those, the cost of it and so forth. And if they believe that it's viable, then, and I'm given those instructions to figure that out, then do what the judge would ask.
Okay. So it's fair to say that you won't let that cost factor be part of your decision. Is that fair?
Yeah, yes, that's fair. That's correct.
Thank you. No, I don't have any more questions.
All right, any questions for Vordire on that issue?
Just to follow up my concern. Yes. You made a comment that if the prosecution asks for the death penalty, I take things sometimes literally. And in that situation, I was wondering, does that mean that if the prosecutor, and I don't want to imply under any circumstances that Chad is going to get convicted, but if that happened and the prosecutor asks for the death penalty, does that mean you're absolutely going to follow the prosecutor's recommendation and impose the death penalty? No, I would follow the judge's advice and take the prosecution's arguments into fact and your arguments into fact. So if the court were to instruct you that upon a conviction, you have a choice between the death penalty and life in prison, you would equally balance those considerations based on the facts and circumstances surrounding the case. Would that be fair? If that was what the judge dictated and those are the choices, yes, I would balance those out fairly. Okay. And at this point, based on what I understand, is that despite those choices, it's still your, and I don't want to use the word preference, you oppose the death penalty, but you're going to be fair. And you're going to look at both of the options before you make a decision based on your understanding of the facts, based on what the prosecutor tells you, based on what the defense tells you, and based on what this judge instructs you on the rules to follow. Would that be fair? I'd like to think that's where I stand, yes. Okay, is there any reason to suggest that you wouldn't stand anywhere else? Not that I know. Thank you for your time, sir. I greatly appreciate your time.
All right, that'll conclude the board Dyer individually, juror 1320. We'll have you return to the jury room with the bailiff, waiting for their instructions as we talk to our remaining jurors.
So yeah, what else?
Juror will discuss individual board Dyer with this 1358.
What I'm gonna do after this next one, y'all, I'm gonna be signing off. Just heads up. Yeah, I felt like he had some legit answers in some things, and it was like, okay, look, here's this, here's that. A lot of these, it's gonna be interesting to see who they pick because the ones who want to get on the jury, I'd be like, I don't really want, like, what's your motivation? And then the ones that are like this dude, I'm like, okay, he's talking about 401k and this and that, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. But a lot of people seem to be passing the vibe check to get to this, you know what I'm saying? Like, pool of people they're going to be going for to
All right, thank you
50.
for
Okay, here we
returning.
go.
Got a couple of follow-up questions for you here. All right, this court doesn't have at this point any individual questions for this juror in relations to bias or hardship. So I'll allow the state to make any inquiries on those topics, if any, and then the defense, and then we'll move on to the other topic.
And Your Honor, we don't have any questions for this gentleman about those topics either. Thank you.
On either hardship or bias questions, anything from the defense?
The only thing that caused me some hesitation is I'm pretty familiar with accountants' responsibilities. And the likelihood is that if you pick, we're going to be 4/15 is a very important date for you.
So I work for a private company. I'm the controller. The 15th deadline is for corporate, and again, we have some entities within that need to be filed. We made a lot of progress in the last week with, I won't use the word anticipation, but knowing that this was a possibility. So I think we're in decent shape. If I am selected nights and weekends through the 15th, I'm good on that front. So I don't believe that's a hardship. Unless there's sequestered between now and then it could be.
What if you're sequestered in late May or June? Is that going to create any problems for you?
Not at all.
Okay, that's all I had, Judge. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
All right, the next issue we'll discuss then with this juror is in relation to your questionnaire responses on attitudes regarding the death penalty. Do you recall going through those questions and answering them last week in the questionnaire?
I do.
Okay, having thought about the questions and responses since then, are those still accurate, or is there anything you change about your opinions stated in that questionnaire?
Those are still accurate.
All right, you had an option of either support or oppose were the only choices. And the question was, do you support or oppose the death penalty? You said support. Is that accurate?
Exactly.
Okay, you also, when given a range of choices, said what most accurately represents the way you feel. You selected a choice that reads, I generally favor the death penalty, but I would base a decision to impose it on the facts, law, and instructions in the case. Is that still the same way you feel about this?
Yeah.
All right, I will advise you that in this case, it may be necessary for you to actually consider this and make a determination in regard to the imposition of the death penalty or some other penalty. And you have to be considering this not hypothetically, but as if it would be absolute and carried out in the case. So thinking through that, does that change at all your opinion on those choices?
No.
Okay, one final question I'll have then is, do you believe that the death penalty should be imposed in every case where a murder has been committed?
I do not.
All right, that concludes the court's questions on that topic. I'll allow any board ire from the state and then the defense.
And Your Honor, I don't have any additional questions for this juror on that topic either. Thank you.
All right, from the defense.
No questions.
All right, juror 1358. You might set the record for the quickest individual board ire today at least. So thank you for your quick and concise answers. We'll have you return to the jury room for further instructions and talk to the remaining jurors.
Appreciate it.
Okay, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and knock off before the next one comes on and it goes past my time because I got to get going. Thank you all for joining. This has been fascinating to watch.
Juror number
Hold on.
1365 will be next.
This has been fascinating to watch. I will let y'all know in the morning if I'm going to be able to go live tomorrow to see, more of what's going on and whatnot. So just be on the lookout or whatever. But thank y'all for hanging out. Thank you, Emily, for being here, keeping us all in line. And Emily just posted Stormy's link if you want to go over there and hang out with everybody. This has been fun. Thank y'all for the commentary. It made my day. And I will possibly see y'all tomorrow here on the podcast channel. Y'all take care. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Bye, everybody.